Okay. The export thrashing. How about that one?
Um, yeah, I think we just need to turn this on. This fell by the wayside, but this is something we should definitely do. Yeah, for Octopus.
Yeah, turn it on and see how badly it breaks.
Yeah.
All right. Checking for unexpected failovers. Same.
This one Joss is working on. And yeah, I think he's getting pretty close to being done with it. So it should be done by Octopus.
Background forward scrub.
I don't know if this is going to get done anytime soon, so I don't even know where the tracker ticket is for this. We should just, I don't feel confident we can get it done by Octopus, so we shouldn't even mark it. Leave it in the backlog.
Sorry, let's check for mixed versions.
The idea for this was I wanted, since the MDSs are particularly sensitive to not behaving correctly if they have mixed versions, I wanted to have a health warning if the MDSs detect, or rather the MDS monitor detects that the MDS's versions don't match.
That's a good idea.
And apparently we already have machinery to see all the versions of all the daemons in Ceph and Luminous.
Yeah.
It's just we need to gather the information in MDS monitor and raise a health warning if it detects that situation.
This would be like major versions, like Mimic and Nautilus, or would it be like minor builds?
Minor too, because sometimes we add feature bits.
Yeah, okay.
Or sometimes the inner MDS messages change.
Right.
And they're not yet versioned.
There was that huge pull request to do that, to do versioning on all the that's different.
It's related. I mean, not an orthogonal issue. We do want to have versioning in the MDS messages, but that may not fully resolve this issue, where we don't need to check for minor version differences. Dong Dong is still working on that. Joss Collin is taking the lead on interacting with Dong Dong to see that that gets shepherded through. It really kind of depends if Dong Dong has time. Otherwise, Joss is going to take over that PR. But even if we do finish that, I think we still want to raise a health warning if the MDSs are not version matched. There could be unexpected issues. Though perhaps that's something we want to have a health warning for generically.
Could be.
Or OSDs or monitors.
Yeah, could be. So the approach that we take for the other daemons is there's a require min release field for the OSD map and now for the mon map. Is there a similar thing for the MDS map already? Or once the upgrade completes to Nautilus, say, if you try to start Mimic, it'll just refuse to let it join. Something like that.
I believe we've been using
the compat set.
The compat set and the MDS monitor, MDS map to do that. But we haven't been rigorous about adding any bits to that. At least recently.
So how are we going to do?
But
how are we going to handle different versions of the MDS running when there's multiple file systems? Are we going to care if different file systems run different versions of the MDS?
I would say yes, because the MDSs are all treated uniformly and you don't know which file system they're going to get assigned to.
Well, they can get assigned based on their version, right? Like the MDS monitor could refuse to assign an older MDS to a file system running a newer version.
Could.
I mean, I'd like to keep it uniform, but do you think we would get any pushback on that? Do you think we would get users that would want to like upgrade a test file system in their cluster and try it first? Do we care?
I could see them doing that.
But there's also
I guess the only issue is there's
other like
coupling between the MDS and monitors. Sorry, Doug. It can be difficult to separate those out.
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of version, you mean if there's mismatch between the monitor version and the MDS version, that also makes sense. The other thing I was going to say is that there are other types of maintenance actions that will result in health warnings for a time anyway, right? So it's not necessarily dismissive to say, well, if you are testing two different versions, then you're in health warn for a while, right?
Yeah.
I know that people have different opinions about that based on our current expression of warnings and errors.
Well, one of the items for the Rados is to have a pretty granular ability to mute health warnings for a period of time. So you could make the MDS mismatch versions warning go away for 24 hours or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think that's something that our users would really appreciate.
But the second half of that would be that, assuming you do have file system A with one version and file system B with a different version, if one of the MDSs happen to fail, you'd want to prevent, presumably, an
older MDS joining a newer cluster. Yeah, and you may be right now we health warn if you don't have enough standby MDSs, right? And that would also be the case for a file system that had been upgraded but didn't have any standby MDSs running that version.
It might be that if the compat set is a per MDS map and not an FS map property, then you could just, before you assign a standby, just make sure that that particular MDS that you're considering satisfies the compat set before you assign it. That might be sufficient, at least for major versions. It wouldn't help for minor versions, but for major versions, that would help. I think if you want something more granular, I would suggest adding an explicit require major release or require minor release type field to the MDS map that just says that it refuses any MDSs that are older than X.
So the other thing we should think about is that we already have the ability to set or to turn on features in the MDS for a given file system. For example, turning on multi-MDS or dir frags, which are now permanently turned on. But I kind of feel that that's probably sufficient to gate features in the file system instead of doing some kind of versioning. I don't really like the idea of older MDSs running around the cluster, running older file systems.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on whether the goal is to say that Octopus adds this new thing, and so therefore we just need to make sure that only MDSs that support that new thing get run, or if the goal is that I'm a conservative operator and I only want to deploy the new point release on this file system, is my more staging one, before I roll it out to the more critical one. because there I think it isn't a feature. It's just the fact that it's a different build, a newer build that they're worried about.
So I will say that we actually get requests for this in Rados pretty often. People want to be able to roll out to like portions of a pool or a cluster in the OSDs, which is basically not practical. But if you have multiple file systems in Ceph, there's actually like easy boundaries, and people are definitely going to ask for it, and I think it's pretty reasonable of them to do so. You also don't really want to be in a state where being mid-upgrade results in warnings appearing in the cluster.
Yeah, I want to try for that. Oh, yeah. We should something to consider for this. I guess that'd still be part of this mixed versions card. Okay. Continuing down the list, there's multi-FS testing.
Yeah, this is part of the multi-FS stabilization.
Just retag that for us. And thrashing fragments, same thing, I assume.
Yep.
Not done yet. MDS memory target is already tagged. That one's in scope. And then the other one that's already tagged is FS top. Is that right?
Yeah, I think he is nearly done with that one. That'll be Octopus.
Okay. All right. Well, that's everything that's tagged so far. What else? We talked about the snapshots scheduling. Is there a card for that?
Yep. The snapshot mirroring.
The snapshot mirroring, but there's also one for scheduling. Snapshot schedules. Schedules. That would be up here. There. That was.
Yeah, we need tracker tickets for this.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right.
I think the way you had separated out the tasks and the CDM made sense to me.
I don't remember what that was. It was the scheduling, it was the mirroring, then like the rsync, optimizing rsync, optimized sync.
The performance ticket?
I'm just thinking of what those tasks were in that discussion.
Oh.
Was optimize rsync, use was the RC time and specify time and read rsync call. I guess that's. Is there a task for that pull request that does the flush operation for our stats? Should there be?
Is there a tracker ticket? There is it.
Pull request.
I think the PR just needs more review from John, but I think it's nearly done.
Okay. Yeah.
And I no, there's no travel card for it.
There's a tracker ticket though.
The problem of that PR is too difficult to understand. Each time I look at it, probably take him half day.
Yeah. I mean, we need to do it though, right? One way or another, whether it's
Yeah. I dug up the PR. Add it to the description.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So there's the scheduling, the stats, and the mirroring. I guess the mirroring might be a stretch one, perhaps, but hopefully not. We don't. I mean, we don't actually know we haven't picked the release date for Octopus yet, so we don't know if we're talking about November or March or somewhere in between. So who knows exactly what all we're going to get through, but hopefully we can at least these. All right. Well, is there anything else? Anything else that you think is in scope here? What are we missing? Oh, I guess there's the stuff you're working on, Jeff, with the async creates.
I don't have a card or I've got some tracker tickets open for it, but the async stuff, though I've kind of set that aside for the moment, just get some other things done. But yeah, I'm still planning to get that done for Octopus. It's kind of dependent on the MDS pieces though as well. So sure.
Yeah.
You actually we have a Trello card for it, Sage. It's
you do?
the third from the bottom.
See it now. Also, I should have the KSFS time stuff done here real soon. Sent patches for that last week.
Cool.
And there's another thing too, I think, but I don't see it.
All right. Move view time up. Okay.
I think we can also the second from the bottom, K-client complete support for lazy IO. I think there's just a few minor things to do there.
Okay. Yep. Probably including the documentation.
Amen.
How it exists.
That's the part I just don't get with lazy IO is I don't really understand what it's supposed to do.
Right.
I mean, there's these flags in there, but it's not real clear what the semantics are when you turn this on. So
yeah. Okay.
Do we want to talk about Hsm support?
Sure. Who do we have a conversation with about this?
is this that worm thing?
No.
I think it was.
This is
Maybe I was talking to Dan about it.
Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to say Andreas, but I don't remember which Andreas.
Sounds reasonable.
That's CERN Dan Vanderster, or which Dan?
Yeah, Vanderster. Right. So I think the meta discussion was that there's discussion going on inside CERN about what their longer term archival file storage strategy should be. They have this crazy distributed file system that they've written themselves, and they're the only user of. That stores like whatever 300 petabytes, manages like 300 petabytes of tape data. So, and they're questioning whether they should continue doing that.
I've got a ticket for this too. It's just some ideas sketched out for how it would work. But I think what we can do is have the MDS manage the actual migration, that is reading the old data out and writing it out. That should be really easy to multi-thread as well.
Yeah.
And the way I envision it working is setting an update to the each inode's file layout, and the MDS will lock file or put files in a queue to be migrated, and then while it's actually in the process of migrating a file, it remains locked and other clients can't read or write from it. reads maybe are okay, but no writes,
Yeah.
and the MDS is in the background moving it to the other pool, or even any kind of layout transformation.
Yeah.
Right. And then once it's complete, the file's unlocked and write caps can be obtained again, and the file layout is atomically updated.
That sounds. Yeah, that sounds reasonable. I assume that the phase one of this would be migrating between Rados pools, data pools.
Yeah, that was my
All right.
question. Yeah.
And then phase two or N of this would be, I want this to go on a tape. I think the first part, just migrating between Rados pools, sounds straightforward and like easy to understand within the context of a Ceph cluster. The larger HSM discussion around tape archives and having pluggable backends and so on, where the MDS basically manages the metadata for a huge file hierarchy, but individual files get archived and you set policy on directories and so on. That is going to be some weird intersection of like DMAPI, which I think is the semi-quasi-standard interface way that you interact with these systems, and then a bunch of like backend, unpluggable backend system, so you can archive off to tape or S3 or something. And then combined with what you're talking about, where the MDS has a notion of being able to like disallow access to the file because it has to do some layout transition, pull things in or push
Yeah,
it
I
in,
mean,
or whatever it is.
it seems like sort of like an object class kind of interface or something like that, right? Where you have these pluggable
Yeah,
core imagery
yeah.
modules, that you attach
You
to
could
the inodes.
you could probably implement it on top also, where if you just have like, the equivalent of ioctls or magic X adders to like quiesce access to a file, some process just copies it to the archive and then says, that's an attribute that says it's over there. I guess you need an upcall mechanism so that when somebody tries to access the file, you wake up the
Yeah, that's
machine, right?
exactly.
I guess
Yeah,
that's
then
the
you
way.
have to.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you have to wake up, bring it, and then you have to quiesce everything, and then activate. Then make this up call or whatever. So if you just have some sort of pluggable interface, then if you have to use that, if that's indicated in the inode or whatever, then you quiesce access, call that. It calls you back when it's done. Yeah.
I think that's a well. What I was about to say is I think we should maybe have a targeted conversation with Dan and whoever else, copy the list, about like what it would take to do like a full HSM type solution like that, because that might be a better investment of people's efforts. That's open source and used by a broad community, as opposed to them building their bespoke solution.
I think that makes sense. And I know some of the
sounds like a good CDM topic.
Some of the labs.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the labs actually have developers working on HSM systems, right?
Exactly, yeah. We can get them all to work together.
Yeah. Well, right now they sort of do, but it's only because like IBM is, has been floating this product along for a while. So I can reach out to some contacts if we want to have that kind of discussion, because I'm certain we get at least strong interest.
That would be awesome. Yeah. The other part of this, which is probably phase one is just migrating between Rados pools. Phase two is probably the ability to set policy on a subdirectory that is sort of propagated to things nested beneath it. So you could say like, home Patrick, please move this to the lowest EC tier because whatever. And then have the MDS go and apply that to the individual files.
Yeah, that's actually what I have the ticket laid out to do.
Oh, cool. Okay.
But a reasonable first step is just having it done on a particular file.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Awesome. All right. I have no idea how to prioritize.
Jeff, you were asking about the K client support for LazyIO. I dug up the ticket I wrote for that, so it's in the description for that Trello card if you want to have a look.
Will do, thanks.
Sage, do you know what this libcephfs PP card is about?
This is a follow-up from this ongoing issue we have with libratos, where the C++ ABI keeps changing, but the C ABI is stable, and because they're combined into a single .so, we didn't want to rev the C ABI. We didn't want to rev the SO name because that would break all the linkage and builds and whatever for like QEMU, which uses the C linkage. And meanwhile, the C++ one was just breaking. And so Kifu did this split. So there are now two .sos. There's one that has C bindings and one that has C++ ones. And so you can rev the C++ ones independently of the C ones. And the assumption was we just want to repeat that for librd and libcephfs. I don't know how much it matters. I mean, maybe an equally valid approach would be to just drop the C++ bindings, perhaps, for libcephfs if there aren't users of that. I assume that Ganesh is using the C ones and Samba is too. So I don't know if there are even any users, but that's what that card was about. I can update the description.
It's not been a problem yet, though, right?
Not that I've heard for libcephfs. It's been a librd and libratos problem so far.
Okay. Well, I'm inclined to just leave this in the backlog then.
Yeah. All right, and it has the description now, so I'll put that way down there. What else? There's the subtree shard. I don't know if
This is the automatic subtree pinning based off some
kind
policy.
of, yeah, basically where you'd say this directory has a bazillion subdirectories, randomly pin them to MDS nodes.
Okay. Yeah, we're thinking about using something like that for the volumes. But that, I think we're just going to have the manager set the pins manually.
Yeah, no problem. Well, if the number of MDSs changes, he'll have to go reset them, right?
Yeah, but that's just redistributing the buckets. If each rank has a bucket of pin directories, you just, if one goes away, you move all the pin subdirectories to the other MDSs evenly. That's pretty simple.
Okay. That'll probably work fine for all the subvolume style ones. It won't help the large scale users that aren't using subvolumes explicitly, but they have their own directory structure.
Yeah.
But it might be able, maybe the code, the manager code that is written to do this can be written so that it just has a set of subdirectories that it does this on that happen to be defaulting to the subvolume base directories.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, the other thing is we wanted to have another look at the balancer. Probably have a card for that. We need to do more testing in Linode and find the rest of the anomalous behavior that users are still reporting. No, Dan Vanderster was trying out the balancer again with the latest Luminous, which has all of the balancer fixes that Jung had recently done.
Mm-hmm.
And he was still finding issues, mostly around the MDS is just ping-ponging back and forth with their subtrees. So I think we need to make a larger effort to take into account the cost of moving subtrees and making them more sticky so that the MDSs are not just handing work back and forth between each other.
This reminds me that our lab cluster still only has one active MBS. It's not a super busy cluster, but we should probably just round that up to like 4 or 8 or something just to output it.
See what happens.
Yeah.
We're running pretty recent kernels on pathology.
Name-A. It's 4.15. We can upgrade it too. It doesn't really matter. This machine's been up for half a year.
All right, that's all I got.
Yep. Sounds good. We just need to probably try to get some of these like enable XYZ and QA off the table sooner rather than later. They're probably, well, hopefully, if they don't turn up bugs, then they're easier to knock off the list.
Yeah.
None of these are tagged with people. We should also maybe get all the developers who are working on any of these onto the Trello board so we can tag them, just so it's clear from at a glance who's working on what and what isn't assigned to anybody.
Okay. I'll work on that next week.
Awesome. All right. Doug, do you want to kick off a discussion with, well, you're going to talk to your lab friends. Maybe do you want to also reach out to Dan, or do you want one of us to?
I'm fine either way. I know Dan. Yeah, I'll talk to Patrick and we'll figure it out.
Awesome. Okay. Great. All right. Sounds good. Anybody have anything else?
Yep. Nope.
Great. All right. Thanks, everyone.